one too. Everyone got the brief more or less, right? The questions might not be exactly the same, but the topics I think are going to be those topics. And let's have fun. Yes, you don't need to worry about it. Yeah. And one thing that I want to ask you, because we've seen this in previous debates as well. You guys like to talk a lot, so let's try to keep. Yes, you do. So let's try to keep it. Let's try to keep exactly. Let's try to keep it. So there will be a timer, I think here. There, yeah. So you can see. You won't see the timer for your question, but you'll see the total timer for the debate, for the first half of the debate. Okay. And try to keep it 2 minutes per answer, if possible. Okay, good. And then we're good. That's my point, right? I'm okay with one. If you guys can stick to that, I'm okay with one because I prefer to have. I prefer to have. I don't like to have this thing where it's like you give an answer, you give an answer. Like I'd like to have like a dialogue, Like a real debate. Like a discussion about the future of Estonia. That's why we're here. Right? We're all motivated by the same thing. You might have different opinions on how to get there, but at the end of the day, we all want the same. I cannot. So that's the beauty of this, right? There's very little at stake. Yeah, I think so. I don't know how is it there.
So, hello everyone. I am Nele, and I welcome you to Astonishing Evening's political debate called The Future of Estonia. For those who have not visited our events before, Astonishing Evenings is a private initiative started by 4 like-minded individuals, me, Silver Tambur, Madeleine Truu, and Reelika Virunurm, with the aim of bringing together locals and expats to discuss different topics of interest. We started in 2017, and since then we have organized a total of 35 events, including 4 pre-election debates. Today's event is supported by Estonian World, Astonishing Evenings, and Telliskivi Creative City. Our moderator today is Joao Rey, who is a long-time expat from Portugal and who has a keen interest in local politics. Joao has actually hosted several pre-election debates with Estonian World and Astonishing Evenings. Today, we also will have a break for 15 minutes. And in the second part of the debate, the audience will also have a chance to ask questions from the candidates, both from the microphone as well as from Slido. So, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nele, for that. Before we begin, I want to introduce the panelists, the candidates that we have here. And then I would like to just say very briefly that it's obviously an honor for me to be here. It's the 5th debate, I think, before the elections that we organized. And I'm actually astonished that the candidates from the parties agreed to do this for an audience that essentially most of them can't vote. So it just shows how open Estonia is and how open the parties are to getting asked questions from the expat community who lives in Estonia. It also shows a willingness from you guys to listen to the questions, but from you who came to this, that we all, and I already told the candidates this, that we're all here for the same common interest. We want to build a better future for Estonia. We're all interested in a better Estonia. We might have different opinions how to get there, and I hope we can discuss some of those opinions during the debate. But let me introduce, first of all, the candidates. So to my left, we have Lea Danielsson Jarg from Isama. Then we have Tanel Kik from Keskerakon, from the Center Party. Then we have Andres Süd from Reform. Then we have Elar Niglas from EKRE, Natalie Metz from the Social Democrats, Margot Rose from ST200, and finally we have Kathleen Kuldma from Parempolsed, who is sitting to the most left, which is kind of funny. All right, but let's give them all a big round of applause. Thank you so much to the candidates for agreeing to do this, and to all of you as well for coming. So we have a lot of topics that we want to cover, and obviously the topic that's most pressing on the agenda that I'd like to get your first opinion on is the current ongoing war in Ukraine. It's obviously present on everyone's minds. It's something that's happening still. And my first question to the candidates is, what do you think is the best way to keep Estonia safe? And if you look at concrete measures, how do they have an impact on the Estonian budget? I think there's a lot of agreement towards getting the 3% commitment on the budget to defense along NATO membership guidelines. But obviously, to get to the 3%, the money needs to come from somewhere. So my question to all of you is, what is the best way to keep Estonia safe? And where does the money come from to meet the 3%? And perhaps we can start right here.
Yes, good evening to everybody. Of course, this is, I think, the most important question. This is number one issue for Isamaa party as well. So I think there are two pillars that the Estonian defense relies on. And it's, of course, our own kind of readiness to defend ourselves. And then, of course, our allies, NATO, the European Union, that can help us. So the first thing is we have to have all the necessary weapons and equipment so that we'd be ready to defend ourselves. And of course, we have to finish the construction of the border. It's still on the way. It's not finished yet. And these are maybe the two most important things. And with NATO, I think we have to have very good relations with our partners to help them so that they could help us as well if we need the help. And we have to take a leading role in, like we have also taken in this Ukraine war issues, and to really convince our partners that this is the most important thing, and defending the whole Europe, the democratic world, depends on what's going to happen in Ukraine and how this is going to end.
But to meet the 3% budget,
of course,
where do you take the money from?
Defense readiness to defend ourselves is the number one topic, and if it's needed, we would also take some loan for defense reasons. So,
all right, so budget deficit is on the table.
Yes,
all right.
If it's needed.
Okay, Tanel?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the invitation and happy to be here. One technical issue, the timer isn't working, but everything else is okay. And the budget deficit actually, okay.
Fast forward.
Yeah, fast forward. The budget deficit is not on the table, it is already here. We have a budget that is 1 billion in minus in the next 4 years and probably even more. And this is something that we just have to take into account right now, because it's quite impossible to find enough money for the defense budget, also for the energy support mechanism, and also for different other support measures that are in place right now, and also to raise the salaries as fast as it's needed. But I can only agree with what Lea said told before me. I'm quite worried that it's going to be a boring 7 answers, because we are quite in the same page, I think. And maybe I would even emphasize more the maybe raising the awareness of the NATO members, and not also only NATO, but also in wider political sphere in the world. I'm talking about also China, I'm talking about India, and all the other bigger stakeholders that need to be convinced that the only solution to this war is Russia getting out of Ukraine and Ukraine winning it. And as long as we have those countries that are somebody like middling in the middle can't decide in which side there are, the longer it actually the war will take. And but we have to convince them with the diplomatic measures, but also with providing enough military aid to Ukraine that they will see that there is no point in even thinking about supporting Russia in that aggression. And if we can manage to do that, then it also helps to keep Estonia more safe. And of course, all the other points that Lea mentioned before, the readiness to defend, defense budget, close relations with allies.
Okay. Anders, if you don't mind, I want to jump to Kathleen because the budget...
Anders agrees with me anyway.
Is probably
he promised to talk for 1 minute. He actually proposed 1 minute too. 2 minutes left.
Kathleen, this budget thing is something that your party, being more fiscally conservative, is that something that you have a difference of opinion regarding where to meet the 3% threshold?
We think that the deficit that is already here should be taken under control, and that the goal should get the deficit to become smaller and until it vanishes, maybe. So yeah, I think we would not support giving taking extra loans for an expense that will be ongoing for years. It's not sustainable. But the question, where would you take the money in the current system? The current budget is not too flexible. There are very many lines of expenses that can't be touched, so, pensions, school system, so on. And I think the entire budget should be looked at with a new perspective, thinking how to make the budget more flexible. And it's such an important question because we see it, that there are crises coming that we can't predict, like Corona, the war right now. And if we're comfortable and we keep just putting more and more expenses only into the budget and not creating any inputs into the budget, then we're stuck. When a crisis comes, we don't have the space to play. So yeah, I knew that this question would come, and I also knew that I would not have I have an idea, but I don't have a clear answer yet because it's such a difficult question.
But trying to keep it under control and still try to meet the 3% threshold
but still
on the budget for defense.
Yeah, but you have to find places where to make the cuts as well. Yeah, it cannot only be the loan because it's not something I would do for the next generation.
Margo?
Yeah, I had one additional comment. We have in the planning also an idea to introduce state defense bonds. That could be a way to finance also defense budget, and a great way actually to, and it probably should be partly the bonds, partly saving money in other places, and then possibly some loan, but maybe it could be shared out of it.
So a specific instrument for bonds for the defense budget.
Yes, and it could be a good way to invest Estonian pension money and pension funds and so on.
Andres?
Yeah, thank you, and very warm welcome to all present and former experts. I'm also one of you. On defense, I think the key task is to keep the alliance united. That's number one, and this is where Prime Minister Kallas has done a superior job. I mean, Estonia's weight and influence is far bigger than it could be, considering our size, population or economy-wise. 3.8 billion until 2026 is all allocated already into the budget. 800 million, or 0.8 billion, if you wish that way, is additional and mostly one of what was allocated for this year. If you ask where the money comes from, then part of the answer is the same, security. If Estonia is a secure and safe place to invest, then investment comes here, and then the revenues will be higher. I think there is a lot of focus, and rightly so, on the cost side, but I think what I miss out in almost all of the debates, nobody is talking about how to increase the revenue base, not by increasing the taxes, but by increasing the pie. And this is where I believe we have a huge opportunity to come later when we talk about the green investment and stuff. But these investment into defense, we are not credible if we don't invest ourselves. We just need to keep leading position here, and the alliance in general has underinvested for 30 years. So this underinvestment needs to be now recovered.
Anders, do you think that the international, I mean, the foreign investment that has come to Estonia, do you see that it is, I wouldn't say it under threat, but do you see that there is some withdrawal from some of these investments because of the neighbor that we have to the east?
No, I would say quite contrary. I just, a few weeks ago, spoke to one of the bankers, Estonian bankers, who were visiting London for fundraising, and the initial sort of expectation was that it will be really difficult, but actually it was quite different. So Estonia is no less safe place to invest than Finland or Sweden once we become members of NATO, period.
All right. Elar, EKRE has the slogan is let's save Estonia, right? Who are we saving it from? Is the threat from outside or is the threat from within?
Good evening to everybody. First of all, I think our slogan, what it really means and what it stands for, is we have to save ourselves and be ready for different types of crises that Estonia has been through when we look back at COVID or when we look at our security crisis right now. We are today in many different very complex crises, and there are many to come. And our slogan really wants to emphasize that we have to be ready for such crises, and Estonia has to be ready. It's kind of, we need to be aware. Now, when it comes to our defense policies, I think because I work in a local municipality, I think it's really, really important to talk about civil defense. We can talk about big defense investments, that's really important. But at the end of the day, also our defense starts from every individual, every household, whether it's a small crisis, you know, there's no electricity, no water, or it's an all-out war. It all starts from every individual, every household. And it's not only investments, but it's also awareness, it's education, and that's something that we have to definitely move faster on, and we have to make bigger plans.
So the best way to keep Estonia safe is to empower civil society to defend itself in case of an attack?
Yeah, absolutely. And to be independent, being able to defend their own family. You know, what we see in Ukraine, for example, we see a lot of policemen, firefighters, people going to military. They have to leave their families behind. And it's all about, in these situations, can your family be independent? Can it be safe? Does it know how to act in such crises? And all of such policies, we have to really raise the awareness and.
But there's no disagreement from your party about membership in NATO.
No, absolutely
okay.
not.
All right.
Yeah, just a small comment that I imagined before coming here today. What if we would have this debate in Iceland? You know, I feel then we could really say that of course the readiness of the civil society to get along in crisis is very important, but where we are, like taking into account the global security, I think for us really is we need to support with every way we can that the global system would work, or at least try to work in the situation where we are right now.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Natalie, what's your view on this topic?
Yeah, I definitely agree what actually both of you were saying, that we have to be very strong and in strong connections with our international allies, both in military, but also in the defense of democracy. But we also have to invest in social security. But this also means the salaries of our police even. But when it comes to financing the defense cost, then we are suggesting temporary national defense tax, which would be 4 or 5 years and 1% of all income, excluding pensions.
So that's an additional income tax for the defense budget.
Yes,
Andres?
exactly, defense tax.
I think what we need here is not a one-off increase in defense expenditure. If you talk about the tax, this tax will be permanent. And we are certainly not in favor of increasing the taxes. It's more a focus on growing the economy and making the revenue base bigger, and then you can fund the expenditures. And also, just as a factual statement, the budget deficit for 2022 was 1.2%. So it was 50% less than it was in the preceding year, despite COVID, despite the war in Ukraine. So actually, we have been managing reasonably well the situation, and let's see how we flow forward. My personal view is that we will actually turn out much better than the forecast tells.
Lea?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to add that I definitely don't agree that in a situation of crisis, the situation that we are in, we should raise taxes. This is nonsense. We should help people to get through this crisis, but not increase the taxes. That's why taking a loan would be much more reasonable, because it's for the good. It will improve our revenues in the future, so that we can pay back the loan. So this is something I really, Isamaa doesn't accept.
Margo?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring a small example. We are all out doing campaign nowadays, and I spoke with our defense expert Berta Tali today, and he said everybody's asking on the street even about the defense, and I have the same experience. And 4 years ago that was not the case at all, and it's, well, I don't know if it's great or it's just the current times. And when you try to explain the defense and what needs to happen on the street, then we've developed a very short answer. So basically saying that Estonia needs a shield and a sword. And the shield is our own protection, like everyone mentioned, the defense forces, but also the population readiness. And then the sword is the allies and the attack direction in a way. And also ST200 is a technology admirer and supporter. So when there is an overwhelming attack, we need to be ready with high-tech solutions, drones, all kinds of equipment like that. So we would very much like to invest into that, and also into innovation of Estonian defense industry, which is doing great already.
Maybe to continue on this topic, but to talk a little bit more about Ukraine, because I'm assuming a lot of the defense budget also goes to supporting Ukraine, either by sending the equipment there or supporting the Ukrainians that have moved to Estonia or need to move. So on this topic of supporting Ukraine and Ukrainians, what's your party's policy, or what's your policy regarding integration policies for the Ukrainians that are already here? What's the role of civil society organizations that already exist and can play a role there? And then maybe just to touch a little bit on this defense budget, I don't know if there is a difference of opinion of sending military equipment to Ukraine. Perhaps there is one party that has a different opinion, but I'm not sure about that. Let's try to figure that out. But Lea, how do you see this topic of supporting Ukrainians that are coming here? What's your party's policy?
Well, that's extremely important, and as you mentioned, the civil society, it has played a really important role, and this is very good. But of course the government should also take its steps, and we have been providing accommodation, courses of language and so on, all kinds of support. And of course we have been one of the top supporters with military equipment and so on to Ukraine. So this is really important. This is something that we have to continue, of course. And but of course, eventually, the idea should be that Ukraine wins and the people can return. And then our role is to help them return, because we can't take advantage of the people that have come here for shelter from the war, to just keep them, because we also need people. The Ukraine needs its people back, and also when we have been meeting with ministers of Ukraine, they have been stressing it very often that please do everything you can to that the people would return, because otherwise Ukraine is facing a really bad demographic situation, and they need people to rebuild the country. So this is something that we also have to consider when the time is right, when the people can return, when the war has finished. We have to support them so that they can return. And we've already helped also build some kindergartens there in Ukraine, in the areas that are not currently in the hotspot of the war, and this is all really very necessary, and this has to be continued.
Tanel?
Yeah, this is actually very difficult questions, because the thing is that we don't really know how long the war will last, and a lot of Estonians also who fled Estonia in 1940s hoped that they will be able to return in a few years. Actually, a lot of them never did that, because Estonia got its independence back in 1991, and this is also something that we have to take into account, that that a lot of those Ukrainians who are right now here probably don't have a place to return in coming years, and not all of them actually want to return. I agree with Lea that if you take the Ukrainian side, then of course, especially if the war is over, then they need as much people back as possible, especially if you talk about younger people and children and women and men and everyone. But at the other side, I would say that I can't really imagine that we would like kind of force people out of Estonia. If they're actually already here for a few years, maybe their children are going into Estonian school, they're already working here, and then I think they should have the possibility to stay. So in that way, there is not one correct answer, that we are talking about humans and they're all individuals, and we just can't say that sending them back or bringing them in, they have their own right to decide.
Thanks. Andres?
Of course, the most urgent need is to supply the Ukraine with the arms what we need to defend, and to get the aggressor out. I mean, that's really the priority number one. When it comes to those war refugees who are here in Estonia, I think the nation here has been really with a big open heart. We have received and adopted and welcomed a big number of people who have been running away from the war, and that I think is really a big thank you to all Estonian people. I think from even short-term integration point of view, it's important that children who are going to school, the more they go to Estonian-speaking schools, the better. And the statistics here is actually quite good. 63% of Ukrainian children are in Estonian-speaking schools. Then another 13% are in language immersion, and then about less than a quarter are in Russian-speaking schools, which I think the percentage is bigger in Tallinn and even bigger in Maardu, and that I think is is an issue. But I agree what was said, what Tanel said, and also Lea. I mean, these people are free to leave once the conditions are ready. I mean, we can't really force them to go if there is a war. If they want to go into the war zone or into a wartime, that's also perfectly fine. I think these people really need to be free to move.
Eller, how does ECRE see this issue?
As it was said before, I think that as we know, as of today, most of Ukrainians here would like to go home when it's safe and rebuild their country. And I think that we need to help them do that when that time comes. And of course, the biggest problem is we don't know when it comes. And it's a big dilemma about the integration question, right? Because right now we cannot talk about long-term integration in that sense, because it would not benefit Ukraine and it would not benefit Estonia when we talk in the perspective of a healthy nation state. Now, when it comes to equipment and resources, I think that it's important to support Ukraine, but we have to also understand that we are also bordering the same aggressor that is fighting with Ukraine today. And we have to make sure that we ourselves have enough resources and we have enough equipment, because security and geopolitical situation can change very quickly and radically.
But you are in favor of sending equipment to Ukraine?
Yes, with when we ourselves have enough resources and when we ourselves have enough equipment, then together with our allies, of course, we need to support Ukraine, and that's our take. Now, also, what is really important is again, when it comes to refugees, I think that when that rebuilding time comes, eventually, that we also support them with the same amount of ambition and will that we have had right now, taking them into our country. But also one thing that definitely is important is the question of border control. I think one of major mistakes we did was when the war in Ukraine started, when the whole-scale war started in Ukraine, that we didn't enact border control, so we know exactly who comes in or who goes out. Multiple Schengen countries did that, for example, Denmark, and it is allowed when it is in the name of our security. So I think that was one big mistake that we did, that would have saved us a lot of problems.
Can you clarify what was the mistake? Like,
that we didn't enact border control.
To prevent?
When the war in Ukraine started.
To prevent who from coming in?
To know who are coming in, we are taking in exactly every person.
Right. This is but this is factually incorrect. When the war started, or the full-scale aggression started, there was a border control. We knew exactly who came.
We had a limited amount of time of border control. We knew who are the people who came in, but we didn't know who were the people who left. We did not track them.
But they're leaving, right? So.
Can I answer?
Daniel?
Yeah. There is one problem, that you almost sound reasonable, but when we take the EKRE's messages that are going out, I'm also a very big fan of your radio show, for example. I listen to it every Sunday because it's always good to know what your, let's say, opponents are telling their audience, and this is quite terrible actually, that both of the Helmes are talking about all the refugees like a security risk, and also it was just that recently in the public broadcast, I think, that Martin Helme said that we're taking only refugees over his dead body or something like that. So that doesn't really go, I think, together with the messages you are giving right now. And if you mentioned that could have saved us from a lot of problems, then I would really want you to clarify what are those problems that we're facing right now. Actually, we can see that refugees coming into Estonia have been taken in quite peacefully. A lot of them have found jobs. A lot of them have, all of them have found some kind of accommodation. We don't have any camps, we don't have any riots, we don't have any problems that would come from the police, that they would say that they see a higher risk of any kind of crimes or protest or something. It's quite peaceful here and quite calm right now.
So the question is very straight.
So what are the risks that you mentioned, or the problems
do these Ukrainian refugees pose a problem to the safety and security
I
of Estonia?
think that most of them don't. But at the same time, there are multiple European countries that have stated that when the war started, when those risks were seen, that people will start, there will be massive immigration in Europe between different countries. We never know what percentage, what amount of people that can be extremely dangerous to our internal security can move freely from one country to another. So that's not the question, that all Ukrainian refugees are causing this massive problems. But what we're talking about of that amount of people that we don't even know that are here. That is the problem. And multiple countries in Europe have stated that that and have enacted those border controls.
I want to let the other panelists also chime in on this
They're
topic.
all secretly working here for the Estonian companies and increasing our GDP. That's the biggest problem.
So Margo, maybe you can continue. How do you
Yeah.
see this topic?
I think a lot was already mentioned, and I wanted to confirm once more that we had Ukrainian labor already before the war, and they've been confirmed as one
Tens
of
of
the...
thousands, actually.
That was temporary.
Yes,
No,
but
both actually.
still,
Temporary.
yeah, we had
Both,
some,
of
and
course.
I think a lot of Estonian companies are surviving on these people, so this is actually very important part of our economy, especially in the crisis time when every little helps. But I also wanted to talk about helping Ukraine, not talking about the weapons, but more about sending Estonian innovation, because we have great projects with modular hospitals, for instance, where other European countries and partners finance projects, and Estonian innovation goes to Ukraine. So there is a great win-win situation. We get to develop these hospitals further, and Ukraine gets help in the crisis situation, and somebody else pays for it. So amazing.
Win-win-win. Natalie, for the Social Democrats, I mean, this is a social issue. So, how do you see this topic of integration of Ukrainian immigrants?
First, I think that social democrats are competent also in any other field, not only social topics. But of course, our position is that Estonia needs to help Ukraine and Ukrainians as long as necessary. But one thing that wasn't maybe covered a lot right now is the integration part, that everyone who receives protection also must complete the A1 language test and course, and then the test, and also the orientation program. And maybe my colleagues can correct me with the numbers, but I think it's like around 20,000 that have now completed the language tests already. And then that just the other day, I think it was Sunday, there was a clip on TV with 3 Ukrainian university students who were speaking fluent Estonian. And then we have people who have been living 20 and more years in Estonia and even can't say hello on the street. So I think that if we help those people, we help them with integration, they are willing to also give something back and collaborate also in the future if this is needed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. And Kathleen, I mean, you are in Narva, right? So you might have a slightly different perspective on things.
Well, this is exactly what I see. I see those people who have lived in Estonia for quite a long time. But I would say right now I also see a mentality change, because it's the situation requires people to decide, like what do they stand for and what are their values and so on. And the younger generation in Narva is like very pro-Estonian, I would say, and especially because we see Russia like across the river, you know, we see when they're coming. But so I mean, but they're more aware, like in that sense, and especially like that when the tank was removed, another tank appeared on the other side of the river, just a monument, but still. But there are also older people who are now like more interested in learning the language. When these are not like the refugees we are speaking about right now, but the people who have lived here for a long time and have.
But can we also make use of? I mean, obviously in Narva there's a large population that speaks Russian, which is a common language that the Ukrainian refugees have. Can we make use? We started this conversation from the civil society. Can we make use of that resource also to help with the integration of the immigrants?
Like all the refugees we have in Narva are relatives or somebody, and so like they have decided to stay in Narva if they have family there. That's a decision they've made, and so that's just like fact. But what can be used in the sense of integration, like either from the civil society or something that the government can support, besides what has already been done, is like, for example, this program of having a language body that the Estonian Language House is organizing right now. That it was actually something similar was done by the students in Pärnu, that they had refugee students coming in, and they made a friend for everybody who was their support body. So there are these initiatives that can be done in a bigger scale, so that they can affect more people. And I think we were also discussing, how long should they stay, or when are they planning to go back? And yes, they don't know that themselves as well, but as long as they're here, I think it's natural that we're all people, and we want them to feel people as well, even though it can be emotionally very hard for them, and so on. But the civil society and the initiatives that the civil society has done, I think is actually giving hope for the Ukrainians here as well, sending a washing house to the front, or also already thinking about how can we help to rebuild Ukraine, and coming up with specific inspiring ideas. I think it's something for the Ukrainians as well that can. Well, they're already a proud nation, and they are actually inspiring the rest of the world, but this is where we can support the same cause.
Very good. Anders, small remark?
Yeah, just sort of another fact that you don't get away with an impression that we have given away all our arms to Ukraine and we are not defended. I mean, Estonian Defense Forces have the highest approval rating. And if you listen to General Herem, he has made it plain clear that we are today much better equipped than we were before, and we haven't given away anything what would have done harm to our own capabilities.
So there is room to send military equipment to...
Yeah,
to
exactly,
yeah.
Absolutely. And Ukraine is fighting our war, that's also a point.
It just happens that the war front is there.
Yeah, just a small remark. Of course, it's true that there are some people among the refugees that are a threat to our security, but they are dealt with individually. And that is not a problem with the border control or anything, but it is a problem that we don't control the border with the European Union, because we don't actually know how many people are in Estonia, and it is a problem because there are several thousand children kind of missing. They are not in the school, but by the book they should be here. Probably, maybe they have left, but maybe they're just not in the school.
Just so I understand clearly.
The lack of information is a problem, but it's not in sense of security that much, but just finding all those people who need some help, the children that need to be in school and so on.
Maybe I misunderstood it, but were you saying that you're in favor of introducing border controls?
Well, it's late, at least now it's late already. If we could have done that before, that would have helped, yes. Then we'd have better knowledge of who's here and who's not, because people just say on the border that either they're going to stay here or either leave, but they
still
don't.
Within the Schengen mechanism, or
Yes,
exiting the Schengen?
Temporarily, just like it was COVID time. Yes, it was a temporary measure for the reason to just have a control of who's here, so that you can reach them. And but that's too late to discuss this now. Now there's already 1 year that they've been here. Now we are just trying to reach all the people by just calling them, if we have the phone numbers, to find out that they're here. Do they have some problems, where the children are, and so on. So this is just a alternative approach.
Just again to understand that every step has a consequence, and it does cost if we were to reintroduce a border control, and B, it's extremely cumbersome for a business. And then the question is, what for? I mean, I think the balance is clearly to the other side. I mean, and we should, if we can't trust the Schengen border, then we have a fundamental issue. when we need to deal with that problem. So what if you argue that Schengen border has some
No,
loopholes?
it's not about the
but then
Schengen
we don't
border.
have a
It's
problem.
about the people who don't say are they here or they are not here. So we still don't have many thousand children who are not at school, and
But
that's
where
a
are
problem.
they hiding?
We don't know where they are. So that is the problem.
Daniel.
Yeah, the challenge that Lea is describing is actually true, that of course we need to know how many people there are here, but I think the solution is not border control, but it's good cooperation with other EU countries. And this is something that was a problem when the crisis started, that we didn't have a very good, let's say, database. But right now, as much as I know, the temporary protection system and different databases actually interact with each other, and then we know that when somebody has been has gotten temporary protection in Estonia and also has applied for that in Latvia or in Sweden or other EU countries, then right now we know that. And there are also people that have done it in several different countries. And then we can be quite sure that the last country where he or she has applied it is the country where she is residing right now. Mm-hmm. So I think there are more maybe innovative and smarter solutions for that than just a tough border control on each side of Estonia.
Well, that would have been a quick fix. We just didn't have this
that wasn't
other mechanism.
That took a bit time, because
we're getting better.
But right now it's much better than it was a year ago.
Before we move on to the, you want to
Just that we also don't know where all our citizens are. We don't know where all our permanent resident people are. We don't know where they are, like most of the time.
And some children are missing school too.
No, not that many. And if they are missing, they are being looked after, yes.
So I like the question actually that Andres proposed. Whenever you want to put in a measure, you should ask why. What is the problem I'm trying to solve? Like, why do I need? And you need to ask the why question like 5 times, and then you have your solution.
Before we move on to the next topic, and just to finish off on this Ukrainian refugee, is there any party that has a difference of opinion when it comes to having a quota for immigrants or refugees from Ukraine?
What quota?
Isn't it against like international like law, like to have a quota for like people searching for political or like looking for asylum?
No, it is. No, the question is that we all know that what Ek has been saying about it, but in real life it would be quite hard to even imagine that who should be the one who says on the border that sorry, you can't come in. For some, first thing, we don't have in this border control, but even if we would have, and then it's this, let's say, a family driving into Estonia and they say sorry, our quota is full, and then you go back. And this is actually not doable in a time of crisis. If you talk about other immigration types, especially if you talk about work and other, then it's normal that we have different mechanisms in place and different regulation. If you talk about war and war refugees, then this is not actually doable. This is unthinkable. It's not humane, and I can't even imagine to say that to police and the border guard that you have to kick those people out of Estonia or prevent them from coming in.
I think the case is right now, if we look at in Europe, for example, countries and how many refugees they've taken in, we can clearly see that Estonia has taken in, when we look at our own population, we have taken a massive amount of refugees, and this is a great pressure for us demographically, and we have to really consider the fact that other countries have to then help us because eventually there will be a lot of problems with integration, a lot of questions about our own demographical situation, which is already very, very hard and difficult when it comes to maintaining our nation states. So I think that when it comes to the amount of refugees, it's really difficult to give a number out. But
there is a number. So in your head, there should be a ceiling.
I think that I'm not the best person to say that, but I think that there's definitely some kind of amount of resources that we can give out, that we can. We have to consider that other European countries have to also help us with that immigration pressure that is right now here.
But that actually is the case. There is an agreement with Finland that if we have too many people so that we can't handle, they are also willing to receive.
Because this is not an Estonian problem. This is a
European.
European.
Exactly.
It's a European problem.
It's a shared issue. And again, I mean, we have been able to accommodate. And the biggest demographic challenge we are facing is not the number of people, but the age of people. We are an aging society. That's our biggest challenge. And I don't think that's a different topic to discuss, but obviously, I mean, there cannot be any quota on how many war refugees we let in.
First of all, the amount of people that the agreement with Finland right now, the amount of people they are willing to take is quite low. But also,
how many we have taken?
Finland.
Yes,
I think
from us.
From us, I can't give the exact number, but I think that it was like 500 people in 2 weeks, or something like that. When it comes to the question of aging, when it comes to aging, when it comes to the question of our demographical challenges, then I agree. Aging demographics and is one of our greatest crises. But I think that this is a much larger topic, and we definitely have different ways to resolve that, and very much different perspectives on that.
Margo, and then
I just wanted to say that we've had immigration waves in the past also in Europe, and then other countries took a bigger responsibility and a bigger amount of people. So now it just maybe makes sense because we have a better fit with the Ukrainian people than, let's say, Spain or some other country. So maybe this is the solidarity that we need in Europe, that now it's our turn.
Yeah, Tanel?
Yeah, once more, we are talking about humans. We're not talking about statistical numbers. And if somebody, just like you mentioned Catherine before, that somebody has relatives in Narva, for example, we can't just say that, sorry, go to Spain. That's understandable that they want to live there where they have already some kind of community network, and it's also better for them actually to cope there than would be in other countries. But if you talk about the millions of Ukrainian refugees, then we have not taken in, let's say, the majority of them. And sometimes it seems from the EKRE rhetoric like millions are coming on the way or into Estonia. The biggest number are in Poland, in Hungary, in other countries next to Ukraine, and these numbers in Estonia are right now doable, let's say, in a way that we can manage it, that the social system can manage, the health system can manage, and a lot of those people have already found jobs. So I would still disagree that this is, of course, a challenge. We have a lot of responsibilities here, but I don't really see the Ukrainian refugees in Estonia as a problem.
Mm-hmm. Doing something that is being hinted here is something that is being done outside of Europe. Mm-hmm. So I don't feel this is a path we should choose.
Very good.
Well, definitely, of course, we have to have a clear immigration policy, but it has to be reasonable, and there is absolute no reason to make any panic right now. Because, like Tanel said, the amount of people is decent. The social system is doing okay with them, and we see that the amount of people coming in is not raising anymore. So talking about a quota now just isn't anything else than talking about the quota.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, just like Daniel said, they are people, and that's why we have to be very responsible. If we really see that we don't have enough resources to provide just normal to help them, so we can't take so many people that we lack the resources, and we can't be of any help to the refugees.
So you agree with that?
Elect them. No, I'm just trying to say that that's why we need our partners. Like it was said with Finland, we have agreed on sharing those refugees, and Finland have taken some already. And of course, at the moment, the situation is very stable. But of course, the government has several times we have discussed what if it escalates and we will run out of resources, then we have to have a plan B.
Yeah, that's of course.
Yeah, I just, maybe following on the buddy system, I just want to find a friend for Elar, so maybe he somehow would be the friend for EKRE. But yeah, maybe let's move on from this. I mean, obviously, I think Estonia's numbers are around 60,000 refugees that are taken. Mm-hmm. If we look at Moldova, which is non-EU and has a weaker economy than Estonia, they've taken over 100,000. So if they can do it, I think.
Well, they're bigger as
Estonia
well.
can
If you
do it.
take the percentage of the population, then Estonia is at the very top. So we have like about 3% of the population. So that's a huge amount for a small country like Estonia.
Yeah,
But
I
let's
think-
also be honest, we have been able to handle it, and the number of people who
So
have been
far, yes.
who have been given the temporary protection is
Yeah.
43,000
Yeah,
close
this
to
is actually a
500.
very big problem with all these statistics, that different politicians and also different countries actually use different numbers. And one is the number of people who have given temporary protection, other number is that how many people actually cross the border, and the third number is how many people of them are staying here. And those three numbers are different. And also if we compare different countries, then we have to agree first that what is the number that we are actually taking into account. For example, some countries have not given out so many temporary protection systems, but they have taken in more people actually by percentage than Estonia, for example. So you have to take that also into account.
Tanel, I want to take something you said before, which is let's not look at this as numbers. Let's look at this as people, right?
Yeah.
And now let's talk of slightly different people. We've talked about Ukrainians and the immigration, but in the audience, in this room, and I think also people listening, there's a lot of immigrants and expats that are also moving to Estonia for different reasons, obviously, and that have chosen Estonia as the place to live and to work.
You're welcome.
So let's also not look at them as numbers, but as people. And the different parties that we have here, what is your view on that type of immigration? What policies do you have or do you foresee to either attract or make it less welcoming for them to keep picking Estonia as a place to come to work, and a little bit also on the integration policy? Any measures or any initiatives that your parties have? Maybe we can start with Keskerakond.
Yeah, I would say that just as our name is, center party is somewhere in the middle in that position. We are definitely supportive of, let's say, so-called smart immigration, that the different kind of specialists and experts in Estonia. We are maybe a bit worried about a few countries that have been pointed out also by the security institutions in Estonia that they see as a potential threat. But I think that here we should actually deal as much as possible on an individual basis. That if you talk about needed experts and skilled immigration, then that is all good and welcome in Estonia. If you talk about center party, when we were together in the government with Reform Party, actually we also made it a bit easier for the specialists to come to Estonia. Because we all know that quota is quite small, but there are a lot of exceptions, and one of those that we changed was that before it needed to be 2 average salaries to come out of the quota, but right now it's 1.5, so it made, we lowered it actually a bit. And we are also quite supportive of people coming to study in Estonia and maybe later on work here. But as mentioned, there are a few countries that they have been pointed out not by us but by the security institutions or experts in Estonia, and we have to take those risks into consideration. Yeah.
All right. And for Isama, Lea, how do you see it?
Well, we think our immigration policy should be quite conservative, and I'll explain why. Estonia is, has the highest, one of the highest rates of foreign born population in Europe. So if we intend to stay as a nation state, a large numbers of immigration are a threat to that. So we really have to consider what is our kind of how many people we can take, so that the Estonian language and culture would really be sustainable here. So because we already have like a quarter of the population that is from some other immigrant population. So this is a very different situation with compared to all the other countries, most of the other countries in Europe. And very often the others don't understand the situation that we are in and why we are so conservative towards immigration.
So, do you see this audience here as a threat to?
No, I'm not talking about a threat, and of course every separate
you
person
said it,
is
you know.
not a threat.
Okay.
But if you look at the numbers, if you look at the population, then having a nation state means that you have to have the Estonian population more than other kind of population. And in Tallinn, for example, it's quite 50-50 already. And most of the immigration comes to Tallinn. So it's very hard to keep Tallinn Estonian speaking and looking like an Estonian city. So it is something that we really have to be conservative about. Of course, we understand there are people, especially Estonians, who are returning. That is really important. And of course, we need very highly educated professionals. Of course, they are very much welcome here. But we have to keep this in mind, that the immigration policy has to keep minimum so that we can maintain our nation state.
Kathleen?
Well, what does it, I think it's not like good to have a picture of a nation state that you know, that everybody are like true Estonians, because there's already so many or so much diversity in that in the society where we are right now. Like in Narva, there are some, like not many, but there are some people who have like Ingeri Finnish background, which is super interesting, and I think. Like, I think what it means to be an Estonian is more about the values. Of course, it's very important to speak the language here, to know the Estonian language maybe on the level of A1 or A2, because we love our language, we have our singing parties and so on. But I mean, I think it should not be that black and white. I think if people come here and they believe in the same values we do, then it's great to have them here. If they help to, and then living here, if they like our culture and they want to participate in it, then it's also only great. If you imagine what is the economy we want to have here, what is the country we want to be, we want to have enterprises, we want to have technology-based enterprises, we want to be a country leading innovation and so on. I don't think we can do it today with these quotas, because it's a global manhunt for talents out there, and the companies here are, you know, doing everything to get the talents to come and work here. And if the state at the same time is throwing like rocks or sticks or whatever in the wheels of these companies, I think it's not good.
Natalie?
Well, our immigration policy is also constructive, like you were also describing. But we have to think about that if we don't let those specialists in, then at one point our specialists are also going out, because our smart people also want to be part of the world-class innovation. And of course, if they can do it here, then some of them decide to do it here or then come back and do it here. But then if they get very good opportunities to develop their area somewhere else, they will go and do it. But when it comes to the people who are coming to Estonia, the specialists, then also for them, there's the orientation program, and everyone who wants can study Estonian. And for Social Democrats, the education is really important. So if the people come here with their children, then also their children will get the opportunity to go to Estonian schools and perhaps also stay here, study here, go to universities here, and start to work here.
Because I work in an actual general school, then I would also like point out that it's very practical if like the general schools, you don't have to pay, but for the private schools, you have to pay. So, but I would just, point out right now as a worker of a school that these schools would also like to get more, like, support. It actually goes together a bit with this Ukrainian refugees and their kids. That if you give a new task to the school, you also need to, like, either make
Funding.
change
Give
the funding
tools,
or change
just
the,
give
yeah,
tools,
yeah.
even if it means that you have to educate the people who have to deal with the new situation and educate these kids.
Margo?
Yeah, well, AC200 is probably the most expat-friendly party, I would think. So we definitely think that our society needs people, needs good quality people. I've lived in Amsterdam for a long time, and I don't see Estonia having a problem of too many expats or too many foreigners. Well, it's very far from that at the moment. There are a few things in our program also, of course the startup visa, these types of things. Also plan to make it easier to start a simple company. Also increase the amount of VAT registration to 100,000, also make labor law a bit more flexible in terms of reflecting the modern ways of working and add flexibility. Also education was mentioned. We believe that Estonia should have more English language education, also higher level, doctoral level, because this only brings us value and brings us smart people. Like you mentioned, there is a hunt going on in Europe for sure, and we need to bring out our competitive advantages, discuss why Estonia, or tell why Estonia is a good place to come, and this is actually the country marketing that's needed. And of course it all needs to be controlled, it all needs to be legal and sort of we should
Managed.
know who's coming. Managed, yes, indeed. But definitely we are open. We think the pie should be made bigger rather than trying to protect a tiny piece. So that's our view.
And maybe for the other colorful sweater, I guess the people with colorful sweaters support this type of immigration. Andres?
Yes, we are the most talent-friendly party. Very simple. And there is a specific section in our program which sets the target of making finest Bay Area the area with the highest talent concentration in the world. So we talk about the twin city of Tallinn and Helsinki because we have a lot to leverage on both strengths, and it's very, very obvious. And of course we talk about legal immigrants. I mean, somebody who has a residence permit or a living permit and so on and so forth. So it is controlled. And just maybe for the explanation, which you may know, or if you don't, then there is this 50 years of occupation, and that's why people here are concerned about expat history will repeat itself, which is a completely different story. I mean, at the time we were occupied, but otherwise it's clear. And when I was a minister, then our government actually passed the law what Tanel made a reference to, which includes also a startup visa, scale-up visa, easier terms to attract the talent. So this is all what we stood for and we stand for, and that's why I'm confident to say that we are the most expat and talent-friendly party.
Tanel, before I go to you, I just want to get Eller's opinion on this topic.
Okay, I will be waiting.
So now let's talk about why we exist and our constitutional principles about our language, our heritage, and our culture. And I think that it is incredibly utmost importance to protect those principles. And for that reason, and as we talked about before, about our demographical crisis, then we're seeing right now the decline of our population, of Estonians, the decline of our language, and these are the things that we should be worried about if we want our country to exist the way it was meant to exist.
Tanel?
Do you think worrying brings more people?
Yeah.
I have also a small comment.
Yeah, it's hard to answer the conservative side, because for me, in all due respect, it seems that the idea of a nation state is something that in your concept, it's not actually realistic. It's not doable. It doesn't really work in that way.
You're not pro the constitution.
No. I'm talking about the way you see this nation state. I'm talking about this concept that you are describing. That we should be against immigration. We should be worried about percentage of Estonians living in Estonia. In Estonia, there are about 200 different nationalities living in Estonia, and I don't agree with the point of view that only about 65 or 62% those are Estonians and all the other are the rest. And there is 35% or even more. This is like some kind of other type of people. They are also part of Estonia, part of the Estonian state, and this is actually the way forward. Living together with them, maybe in a way mixing different cultures, identities, and also even culture is not something that is like stable and you have to reserve it in some kind of box. This is constantly growing, constantly developing, and this is the way we should also look our state. If you only think about the numbers and say that we have to protect 65% and be very careful about all the rest, then I think in the end a lot of those 65% say that, sorry, this is not the country I want to live in, and this is not the country I want to have a family or make a family in, because the younger generation is not thinking in that way or in that maybe black and white code system.
Very, very quickly.
Yeah, well, I was just wanted to say that how do you imagine, Tanel, how we can integrate people coming here into our Estonian culture, teach them Estonian language and so on, if there are less and less Estonians living in Estonia. We already have a huge problem
I don't
of
agree with your statistics,
integration. This is statistics Estonia. Just look at the numbers.
Excuse me, but that's
I
not
don't agree
a
with
real...
Just let me finish.
Yeah.
And this is really if we have an integration problem now, the more we will have it if we have more people coming here.
But maybe
we
this
have a
can't
solution.
find the teachers and so on. So this is really, the numbers are really important.
Anders, very quickly before we move to the last topic.
Look, I mean, the greatest integrator is a school. All my 3 kids started
we lack
in
Estonian teachers at the moment.
Yeah, but that is in any case the topic. That doesn't improve if we have more or less expats here. All my 3 kids...
I'm not talking about expats, I'm talking about immigration at the moment.
Yeah,
Expats are welcome anytime.
But what I'm saying that the greatest integrator is schooling system. Just one quick example. You know MUBA, Music and Ballet School, which was just opened. They have a ballet class by Kaia Kõrb. And I was talking to them sort of what kind of students they are going to. All over the world. And you know what? In what language they study? In Estonian. No problem. Just, we can't be so afraid of. It's usually in parents' head, oh, my child cannot learn the language. They all can. And then we should really be focusing on making the school system capable of handling. That's actually a priority. And then we don't have an issue. Honestly, we don't have an issue. Many people are actually willing to study and to learn and speak the local culture.
Andres, your prime minister from the Reform Party was prime minister for 10 years or more.
But who has been holding
why
the most
are the
of the
schools
time?
Still in the Russian speaking? Why didn't you then teach all the Russian children to speak Estonian? And now you're saying that it's easier now?
This is now what the standard politics. And I'm still a young politician. I mean, we can't change the past. You have held also the Minister of Education position for a long
that's
time.
That's why I'm saying that immigration,
yeah,
we have to
you,
look
you
at
were
the
able
numbers.
To change it only
we have to look at the numbers. The more immigrants we have, the larger the problem we'll get.
But maybe
but I was just telling that I have a solution. So let's focus on the school, let's provide the people, the financing, and it all will be fine.
Just 3 sentences. Well, we already are a multicultural society. That's how it is. I have a student whose parents, both of her parents have Russian citizenship, and she's about to have the Estonian citizenship. Just, there has been a talk about this historical difficult thing, and has been coming up and up. I think there is hope in that. And I always think it's so funny that if I would go and work in India, I would be an expat. But if, let's say, somebody from Belarus is coming to work here, and it's an immigrant, like, who's an expat and who's an immigrant? And
Ooh, we would be here all night.
yeah. I'm just going to leave it there.
We would be here all night. But maybe just because we're running out of time, and after the break we want to get questions from the audience. One common theme that I think is important, not just to the Estonians, but also to the immigrants and expats who live here, is the economy. And we've been going through. Estonia has the, I don't know if it's honorary title of the inflation champion in the EU. How do you see the future for the economy? Because I think if we talk about integration policy and making life better for the Estonians who we want to keep here, that they don't go abroad, and also we want to attract the smart people because these people are smart. They could work anywhere, but they choose to come here. Inflation hits everyone. Are there some policies in your programs to try to tackle this, knowing that there's a lot of factors involved in this, but maybe, I don't know, to support the ones that are more affected? Natalie, maybe we can start with you.
Yes, well, this is highly connected with our environmental policy, and the aim is to be on renewable energy by 2030, and this has a direct and positive effect also for the shopping bag, because the energy price is what's making the prices high in the stores too.
Mm-hmm. All right, so through the environmental policy, trying to lower the cost of energy would then have
renewable
cascading
energy,
effects.
and not only in Estonia but in the whole Baltics. Yeah.
All right, Margo.
Yeah, that's one way for sure, but I think the unpleasant truth is that this inflation can't really be regulated in a short term. So I would come back to my idea of making the pie bigger and increasing the competitive advantage of Estonian economy, and supporting the sectors that are our sort of strongest and flagship ones. Talking about wooden construction, or taking our sea that's very suitable for offshore wind energy. So increasing the economy and trying to have people earn more, companies be in a better situation, and then via that sort of compete the inflation and living cost.
Tanel?
Yeah, I agree with what was said before, but also in our idea is that we should actually lower VAT tax, for example, for food and groceries, and also for pharmaceuticals. And also we need to increase the average pension, for example, faster than it has been done so far. Not only indexing doesn't really help here, because we see that our pensions compared to the average salary are about 40%. That is one of the lowest in European Union. So we have to support those groups, elderly, and also people with, for example, with disabilities and other socially more vulnerable groups in a time of not hyperinflation, but a very high inflation. That is definitely a problem. And we see that is actually closely connected with all this security risk and all those questions, because when people don't have enough money, for example, for food, for their bills, then they are also less willing to help others, and we need to be solidar right now in this time of multiple crises.
Exactly, and also less eager to protect the country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, well, I think the main reason for this inflation is the energy prices. And this is getting better because all the transition from the Russian sources to some other sources has been going on for all those this year. So we see that the prices are coming down, but of course we need our new energy sources, of course the renewable energy sources like the wind turbines and those sun kind of
solar panels.
So, yes. This is what we additionally need. But of course, until we can't have the necessary energy supply without current power plants, then we have to keep those as well.
Kathleen?
Well, yes, the height of the energy prices adds fuel to the inflation, but I think it's probably not the only reason causing it. If we talk about energy, yes, it's I would say it's a sector where they've been throwing the ball around, that there has been some discussion what should be the future and so on, but I would not say that some very specific hard decisions would have been made. In our program, we do have the promise that you should at least prep or already maybe take the legislation to have a nuclear plant. Maybe that's not, and so you would at least have the option of planning. Right now, there is only one group of lobbyists who are supporting this and who are thinking about having a newer nuclear energy plant here, but it's not actually even law-wise, it's not an option yet.
Helar?
I think, as it was mentioned, I think high energy prices are definitely a problem. I think when it comes to renewable energy policy in Europe, I think we have made great mistakes. And I think that, Can
you name one or two of these?
I think that we have been, going away from coal and nuclear energy in Europe has been definitely puts us in a risk. What we have seen in Germany, for example, and the Russian natural gas, that how we have made ourselves dependable, and this is paying us back now. When it comes to Estonia, I think that the one step further would be that we should really need to consider nuclear energy as an option to before we can have a smoother transition to something that is more renewable.
Andres?
The greatest mistake is the denial of the climate change. And that's why we obviously need investment in green technologies, not only in energy, but throughout the economy. That's the historic opportunity of this century. And I think we are well positioned if we are brave enough and ambitious enough. Yes, it has been very, very difficult year for people, for businesses, but the sky is clearing up. If you look at the energy prices, the gas is below 50 euros per megawatt hour. Electricity is also around 100, 120 on average per megawatt hour. The dependency what we had on Russian gas and fossil fuels is cut. And if you look at the price level, your question is absolutely right. I just give you a bit different perspective based on the same numbers. You know how much the level of prices in Estonia have increased over the past 5 months? Any guess? No guess. 0.2%. So there has been very, very rapid deceleration. I think today or day before, or yesterday, it came out also the producer price index decline on a month-on-month basis by 1%. So the price pressures are easing. Money has become more expensive. I know it hurts valuations. It hurts your monthly payment on mortgages. But overall, it is a good and right direction we are sailing at. So let's make this opportunity move fast to the green investment, innovation, and we attract tons of talent, tons of investment, and the pie is much bigger. And we are not talking about increasing the taxes, but down the road, we can also talk about reducing the taxes.
Those are good news. Maybe one day I can see my dream of €1 espressos in Tallinn. But
no, definitely.
I think we're getting away further away from that.
But that
you
dream
can have it at your home.
That dream doesn't come true because barista also wants to get paid.
Yeah,
I think that it's about absolute purchasing power, which we should aim at here.
Andres, don't forget he comes from Portugal.
yes,
I know.
That's why he's talking about the €1
€1
espressos.
But that's okay. But if you can afford to pay more,
Then
I mean,
why not
barista-
pay it? Yeah.
No,
doesn't
barista
matter.
needs to
It's
live.
weird.
I
There's
mean,
a weird
that's-
supply and demand dynamics going on in the espressos in
But you
Tallinn.
can also get espresso in Tallinn for €1 somewhere.
No.
No, really?
If
no
you
single
find-
place.
Yeah,
no
no,
single
no.
place.
You can get it.
You can get it for €3, which is ridiculous.
Free, I know, but
Maybe at Riigikogu
But
bar.
not
no,
espresso, just
Riigikogu is
coffee.
2.
Maybe. All right, so that's it. That's all the time we have left for the first half of the debate. I'd like to thank you guys so much for all your answers and for being straightforward with them and trying to keep within limits. We will have a short break now of 15 minutes. When we come back, we will turn the mic to you and you will be able to ask some questions to the candidates. I know that all of you were already posting some questions on Slido. I do invite you to visit slido.com. The code is on the screens and you can upvote the questions from each other and send a few more questions. But this was an engaging first half, so let's hear it once again. A big round of applause to all the candidates. Thank you guys so much. Let's be back here in 15 minutes, all right?
glasses, they are very
Yeah,
dirty.
it's. I know. Sometimes it's tricky.
You know, our foreign minister is just like that. His
Yeah?
glasses are this little.
Can get tricky. All right, so I think we're all back, and this is where it gets interesting because now we're gonna have the open mic, which is kind of unusual for these types of debates, where we actually allow the audience to ask questions and the candidates to answer them. So I know some of you already asked questions on Slido; they have been upvoted. I will try to cover those, but anyone who feels like he or she wants to ask a question, please do raise your hands now if you want to ask a question from the audience, because we have Nele and Relika.
I
Where are they?
think there is one in the front
There
row.
is, yeah.
So they have a microphone, and they will go around and go with questions from the audience. So I think we have the first one there, yeah?
Yeah.
So please introduce yourselves and ask the question to the candidate or candidates.
Hi, hello. My name is Marilyn. I am not an expat. I'm from Estonia, but no, sorry, I'm not an immigrant. I was supposed to be that. Yeah, but I do have let's say, an immigrant partner, even though he's from Spain, but expat. Yes, and. But yeah, I actually have two questions, but maybe can I ask two? Okay. So the first question would be to Isama. We talked a lot about preserving the nation, the Estonian nation, and so on. And as I understand, your way of, let's say, protecting it is to have a smaller inflow of the immigrants from abroad. And my question is, I'm living here, but let's say 50% of my close friend group, they all live abroad for already several years. And they have, let's say, high-level work experience, they have connections, and for some reason they are not coming back. And well, I have two little kids, and I'm very proud that I have, thanks to me, there are two new people in the world who speak Estonian.
Super.
Yes, but at the same time, I'm, let's say, hoping, fingers crossed, that when they are 15, 18, that the society that we live here in Estonia is the kind of society where they can feel safe and accepted. And it's kind of a society that's, let's say, accepting them no matter, I mean, I don't know about what they would like to do in the future, who they want to marry, and so on. But I do know when, for example, they would say that, oh, I think I'm gay or whatever, I think I would open the best bottle of cava and just celebrate. In the sense that, but so yes, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that by that time we have reached this kind of society where they can feel safe, and it's a diverse society because, but at the same time I know that because it is a, let's say, sorry, sorry. So yeah, my question to Isama is that are you also planning to put more focus on creating these conditions that would make all these high-level talented Estonians to come back to Estonia and bring their partners, bring their business partners and so on, and that they would feel proud to say that I'm an Estonian?
Yeah, well, I think at the moment already we can be very proud to say that we're Estonian. And of course, there are Estonians living abroad, and I think that the main reason or the main thing that would bring them back is when Estonian salaries reach the level that is at least the medium of the European Union. Until then, of course, they want to come back, but they are not willing to sacrifice on the salaries. So that's the reason they are not coming back.
But I think the question was touching not just on economic issues.
Of course,
yes,
and I'll get to that. I wouldn't say that Estonia is kind of a place where nobody wants to be, that we had to change a lot so that it would change. No, Estonia is a country that, like you see, many people want to come to. And many people that have come here say that it is a very nice place because it is very safe, because it's very good to raise children here. So Estonia, I think it's very bad to think negative, that like our country is good for nothing. No, it's a very great place. We have to be proud of it. And also I hear a lot that it is a very nice place to live. But of course the economic side, of course, is something that we need to develop, so that, of course, if the medium salary in Norway, for example, is over 3,000 euros, and in Estonia it's 1,600 or what was it? So of course it's different, and of course the doctors, other specialists, they stay there when they have left. But if you look at I deal with demographics, so I know numbers very well. So I've compared how many young people have we kind of lost to the other countries. It's not a very huge number. We see that there was a huge wave of out-migration after the regaining independence, and then second time after entering the EU. But now it's very stable. And if you look at the incoming and leaving people, it's zero. If you add
net.
the net is zero. So we don't see out-migration anymore. Estonia is a nice place to have children, to raise children, to work, to study. It's very safe, and we should be proud of it.
Is Estonia a good place to be in a same-sex relationship?
Not yet.
Okay, not yet. Okay, that's already positive. Natalie?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I think the question was about the openness of the society, not about the economical situation. And currently, Estonia has such a long way to go to be an actually open society for both people living here and not to mention people coming from somewhere else, be the people living here women or same-sex couples or people with different language backgrounds, people coming with from lower social backgrounds. The question was about this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
well,
it's
and
now
I
you let
the
me
question.
finish.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you asked me earlier.
Okay, let me then answer later on. Okay.
And we have to work all to make Estonia an open society. And this is a very big task we have. And it has a lot to do with all the topics we've discussed today. Also our security, our economy, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So to answer your question, I really hope that in 15 years Estonia will be a country where your children want to come back.
Mm-hmm. Leah, very quickly.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to say that I guess people don't mind that it's like you said, all those bad things, because people are coming here, they like Estonia, and more than the same number of leaving than
I
coming.
didn't say any bad things.
Yeah.
I didn't say any bad things.
Yeah. Andres, you wanted to add something?
I'm just willing to reassure. But look, I mean, we are ranking number 3 in the Freedom Index globally now. And I think we shouldn't take really 15 years to get there, what Natalie told. We should be there today. And
so latest by the end of the mandate of this government.
Absolutely. I mean, the open society is really the key. This has been something, or one thing what has carried us to a place we are today. And it has been a great journey. I mean, the increase in living standards has been enormous. Yes, not everybody is equal. Yes, the society is not perfect. Mm-hmm. But given the point of departure, it has been clearly a great journey.
I just
Margot,
had one more
quickly.
comment that I'm the crazy one who came back for half of the salary 10 years ago from the Netherlands. And during the time till now, I've managed to go back to the income of what I had or even more, because there is great ways to invest into green tech startups, different partners that you can bring from abroad. So what I wanted to say is that despite of the society being how it is, Estonia is still quite great to, I don't know whose version I'm confirming here, but there are great things also, but I agree that I didn't bring a partner with different color children or any of these things that could have been challenging. Mm-hmm. So for me it was easy, but for these people it's definitely not.
Very quickly, because we have a lot of questions.
Hope that I feel it's already becoming more open in Tallinn and Tartu as well, maybe, but I would like to see it in other parts of Estonia as well.
Yeah, I think that's a common theme also, this two-speed country with Tallinn versus the rest. Any other questions from the audience? Yeah, there's one here. I don't know if there's a microphone. Let's get a microphone up in the front.
Hello.
Oh, it's there. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Christina, and you have been actually talking about my group of people half of the evening. I'm Ukrainian, and first of all, I'm really thankful to all Estonians for the warm welcome, and for that I haven't felt myself a person of a second grade till today. I heard this discussion. No, just joke. So the first thing I wanted to ask is about entrepreneurship opportunities, because mainly integration programs, as far as I understand, are focused on the labor market. As far as I know, Estonia is really good about entrepreneurship spirit and opportunities. But I would like to hear your opinion which way it will move after those elections, which I understand are quite crucial. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So I think it was a generic question. Anyone wants to tackle? Andres?
If I can start. If we win the elections and Kaja Kallas will form the next government, things will go to the direction what you are willing to see.
Whatever direction it is.
Simple as that. We really have historic opportunity here to carry the society forward. And you mentioned about the business opportunities. I mean, for me, investment comes to a country which has an open society, smart people, and the best quality of life. And this is what we at least will offer and aim to offer. Mm-hmm. And then the opportunities will really depend on the people, and you have in a good company here, you can certainly mingle and find ways to go ahead with entrepreneurship.
Tana?
Then I would love to invite Kaja Kallas to our conference, Brave to Bloom conference, which is actually aimed to enhance women entrepreneurship opportunities here in Estonia.
All right, that's an open invitation.
I will pass the invitation on.
Good hustle.
Yeah, actually, of course, it's the center party that takes care of all the problems. But
creates or takes care?
Yeah, takes care. Yeah, the issue I think is right now that for me it seems that the idea that we have a very big gap or which way we are going after the elections is a bit of a fraud actually. The majority of the parliament, the majority of the parties are quite like-minded actually. If you talk about entrepreneurship, if you talk about IT companies, we have most startups per GDP in the world. We are e-residency, for example. I know that Ukraine is right now the biggest country of e-residence because this is one possibility to open a company in Estonia, to start here, and also we are supporting it through the labor institutions as well, not only about not the how is it, Töötukassa in English, I'm not sure, the labor office, unemployment insurance fund, yeah, sorry. It's not only working to find people jobs or paying them different support, it also helps and gives out different support to start their own company, so to start their own business. And I can guarantee you that even if the Reform Party will find itself in the opposition, then that will not change, because these are some kind of values and some kind of principles that even EKRE agrees with, I think.
So in that sense, there's no difference whatever party they vote, the result will be the same.
There is difference.
Of course, there is difference. Certain party is better than the other ones, but
So
I'm just saying that this idea that maybe after March Estonia will move in a totally different direction, this is just bullshit. Sorry, this is not going to happen, because this is some kind of maybe good for Reform Party and EKRE to make this kind of black and white decision, and are we going to the Russia and Kremlin, or are we going to Europe? No, this is about political campaigns, and you can be quite you can sleep quite soundly. Nothing bad will happen after the election.
The difference is more than just the color schemes and the sense of fashion, right? There's more depth to your programs.
Tanel, but sorry, we saw the other government what was before Kaja Kallas, and that was different. I mean,
that was a very good government.
Well, people have different views.
We put 500 million in healthcare. We built a Tallinn hospital that you took away money. We growed the pensions. The labor market numbers were better than they are right now. No, really, I'm talking seriously. Of course, EKRE has its faults, and I'm not a supporter or a fan of them. But to say that you are the only party that's taking care of democracy in Estonia, this is just not true.
Mm-hmm. That I wasn't saying that we are the only. But okay,
guys, let's
have a start to talk.
Margo?
I really love the friendly atmosphere, and that we are all like-minded here. But I just don't want to go too much back into the history. But our problem is that we see that things don't get done. Like, they get done too slowly, and I think with a lot of if we take the sustainable energy, just one example, I don't want to talk about 10 years ago or any of these things. We've been in the crisis for a year. There is this electricity market law that took 8 months to pass, and in Lithuania, a similar law took 1 month. I don't know I'm sure there are reasons. That's what I hear from the energy developers, that why is it 8 times slower? So our criticism is mainly that it's just we need to speed up with a lot of things.
And it's good to keep these governments accountable for the promises that they make, and that things actually get done. I see one more question there, and there is one here.
Hello, everybody. My name is Manan. I'm originally from Pakistan. If the elections were like 4 months late, I could have voted. I've already applied for my Estonian citizenship. Mm-hmm. My question is, particularly to the conservative parties, is that what does it mean to be an Estonian for you? Is it a person who has the Estonian citizenship, or does it mean a person who knows the Estonian language? Like, what would you feel if 30% of Estonia looked like me, but they all had Estonian citizenship passport, they all passed their constitution exam, they all passed their language exam? What does it mean to be an Estonian, and what do you think about that? Yeah.
All right. I think it was for the conservative parties. I don't know who self-identifies as a conservative party, but at least two of you should answer.
Yeah. So I think what matters is definitely when it becomes about the concept of who is an Estonian, I think we should definitely consider lineage, the person's roots. We need to understand the fact that culture is not just, wearing a t-shirt, I love Estonia, or wearing our tricolor. It's something much more. It's something much more meaningful. And without having any heritage or lineage in the country that you live in, I think that it is incredibly difficult to be able to understand the reasons why our traditions, the reasons why we have come to certain values that we respect here, the lifestyle. I think that it is important to extra to the language It is the lineage, the heritage.
How far back do you go for this lineage? How many years? To like Swedes, to Germans, to Russians, to how far back?
I think we need to understand that even if we're talking about few generations, it has to be enough that we are grounded in this place where we live, that it is enough time that we are integrated, assimilated, that we share common ground with the people around us enough. So it is a really difficult question to answer with one sentence, I think that the problem is that we're trying.
Use more. You don't have to use one sentence.
Yeah.
Use more.
Yeah, but I think that the problem is that a lot of liberals, for example, they try to reduce nationality to this, one certain sentence that you can say, like, this is, if I'm this, then I'm an Estonian, for example. But it runs much more deeper.
Who does it? You are referring to liberals. Which liberals are making
Well,
this definition?
I think mainstream liberals, I think mostly everyone. But, but that's just me.
All right. Leah?
Yeah, well, there are two kind of approaches to nation. Like it can be citizenship based, like it's in the United States, or it's like a national heritage approach that is has to deal much about where you were born, where your parents were born, which culture you were raised in, and so on. It's not just only knowing the language or knowing the main cultural things. For example, if I'd study Japanese and went to live in Japan, when will I become a Japanese? I think if I live there long enough, my children maybe are born there, then maybe they can become Japanese if the other Japanese who have lived there for centuries will say that they are. It's like your community has to accept you, and this is maybe the approach that relies on this national heritage. But of course, like the United States, it's only you do the exam and you learn the language and you are there. So it's not with a nation state. It cannot be that simple because we need to have this heritage.
I think you mentioned something very important here, which is how accepted you are, right? How
not accepted
society.
like you can be accepted as a foreigner, as somebody from a different nationality. You can also be accepted, and I absolutely respect and accept everyone. But so I mean that the Estonians accept you as an Estonian, or as Japanese would accept me as a Japanese. And that's much more than just knowing the language.
So in essence, you're separating the citizenship, which obviously there are Estonian citizens, which don't share the Estonian nationality.
We have other communities, national communities here, and that's really great. We also have the Ukrainian. Now it's much bigger. The community, Jews, Russians, Germans, Finns. They live here. They may have Estonian citizenship, but they are not Estonians in that sense that they also have the heritage side.
Yeah, I think this is a very good question, and this actually brings out the idea that I was trying to explain before, that the concept of a nation state that both of the conservative parties are actually describing doesn't really have a very bright future. I think this is really not doable. And also, if you talk about accepting somebody as an Estonian, then the politicians should be the best example here, not picking out and saying that you have to fulfill this, that criteria, and especially if you talk about roots and ancestry, then this is something that is not doable, and you cannot even fulfill this criteria, whatever you do. And I think becoming an Estonian should be more as an option, and also your own decision. And if you want to be an Estonian, a part of Estonian society, then we should be happy to accept you are your black or white or whatever kind of nationality you are coming from. And also because we are, as I mentioned before, we have about 200 different nationalities living in Estonia, even more. It's also not very correct that you have to always choose that are you an Estonian or Russian. if you talk both languages, if you have one parent is coming from Russia, the other one is coming from here, you have to choose which one you are. But actually, you are both. You are an Estonian and you are an Russian. And this is something that we should also take into account also in our statistics and in our numbers and in our way of thinking. That we can't just say the black or white. You are an Estonian, you are a non-Estonian. The word is more complicated.
Natalie?
Yeah, I agree in that sense that if you are already willing to learn the language of Estonian, or if you bother to learn our traditions and customs, then I think our society should be very welcoming towards you. And now if I think back to my school years, we actually went to the same school with Tanel, and two of my classmates, one guy was from Azerbaijan and another girl was from Iraqi, I think. And I never had the question whether they are Estonians or not. They didn't look like Estonians, but they acted like us and they were part of us since day one, and they were Estonians. But of course, they were also their own nation. So I think we shouldn't be so protective about whether you can be only Estonian and nothing else. You can be, if you want, perhaps you can even be, 3 different nationalities. We also can be 3 different nationalities.
Natalie, let's not go crazy here. Okay? Andres had a quick remark. But we have a lot of questions, so I want to keep these short.
Just very quickly, I listen, and for me it sounds like we are making a simple thing rather complicated. If you have citizenship, you are Estonian citizen, period. If you are Estonian, I don't know. But that is a completely different topic to discuss. If you are an Estonian citizen, you have all the same rights. And that's just how
and
it is.
That's how the state should look at things.
But I would say that to hear this kind of rhetoric or like the hints that we heard, it's very hurting for somebody who has a dual identity or has a more complex identity than if you hear these kinds of things from politicians through national media, or these people saying these things are ministers, then it's hurtful.
Mm-hmm.
Just one comment that I find it a bit ironic that conservatives who want to have more Estonian speakers are actually discouraging the people to become Estonian speakers and citizens.
Absolutely.
Oh, well,
good point.
No, there was no meaning to discourage anyone learning Estonian, to becoming Estonian citizen. That's great, but we were talking about Estonians as a nation, and we know that there are only about 900,000 Estonians in the world. We know that we have many nations that have disappeared, that were
we could be here all night
nations.
and talk about what constitutes an Estonian now. Is it lineage? Is it a shared set of principles?
If there are no Estonians, then there couldn't be this that there are nations disappearing, especially on the Russian territory. There were many other nations that were related to Estonians, and they've disappeared. They've become Russian.
Well, I'm also 1/8 of German, so I don't know.
All right. I know there's one more question somewhere, but before we go there, there was the most voted question in the Slido was actually connected to this topic, and I want quick answers from all of you. The question was: would you allow dual citizenship for EU citizens, not to force them to abandon their first citizenship? Very quick questions. Dual citizenship for EU citizens.
Yeah, in our party platform, not only dual citizen, but we're talking about multiple citizenship right to EU and also European Free Trade Association countries. And there are a lot of countries that are actually outside of this that we should also take into debate, but we are supporting this kind of new
Right.
regulation.
But you would stop at EU and
No,
EFTA.
right now in our platform, it's EU and European Free Trade Association, but there are other countries like Canada, United States, and also right now United Kingdom, which is outside of EU, and so I think we should maybe
Widen it a
also
bit.
widen it, but these are the ones that are in our platform. And
Right. What about the other parties? How do you see it?
We support it. It was in our local election program even, so definitely yes.
EU and free trade outside EU?
Well, definitely EU. That was the question, I think.
But would you go further than that?
Possibly.
Right.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that me personally, I would support to have a dual citizenship with EU passports, and from there on, it requires thinking. But I will also point out that you know our society, you live here, and we've seen I think you have to create the path for this idea. Like you can't do it tomorrow. You have to start lobby, because not everybody sees the benefits of this idea, and sometimes our society backlashes very strongly when something comes too surprisingly for them. And I will also point out that unfortunately I will disappear because I have a transportation issue, but it has been really great sharing the stage with all the candidates, and it has been a joy having you guys as the audience.
Thank you, Catherine. Safe trip back to
Don't
Narva.
take your microphone with you. But back to
the other
question,
parties,
EU, yes.
EU, yes, and other countries.
Also, right. Currently, I would stick to EU, and not to say that there is not, but this needs more discussion.
Andres?
It is EU plus, because we also, if we think about the US, there are also other allies. So this is a topic what we need to really discuss.
Just personal curiosity from my side. Is this a serious topic that's meant to be planned on
well,
the
we
next?
actually submitted. I think that the practical problem, what some people face, if it is like a dual citizenship marriage, then the children who are born are forced to opt at the age of 18 what citizenship they would pick, as you can't have two, and that is an issue. We had actually a bill also in the parliament when we were in opposition, but this is something what I think needs to be discussed, settled, and handled in a pragmatic way.
Is there a point for the Conservatives to say something on this, or it's obvious?
I would rather say no.
Okay, that was pretty obvious. And
well, I just have a question. If you have dual citizenships, which army would you join? Which country's army, if there is a need?
Is that question to me?
Yeah, if you have dual citizenship and you should go to both of the armies, and considering the situation we have in Europe at the
I
moment?
think, obviously being inside the EU means that we're obviously facing a common enemy. So we
would still have to choose which, because you're obliged to your...
So the ones that are probably closer to the enemy, closer to the front, would be the ones that would need most of my support. Actually, that's a great question, because there was also, and I know that we have more questions from the audience, but there was a question on Slido, which is also very upvoted, which is, would you support the creation of an Estonian Foreign Legion to recruit skilled foreign nationals into the Estonian military who could help and strengthen our army? And there was also quite a few foreigners who would want to join the Kaitselit. How do you see that?
I don't know. We haven't discussed this. Of course, it's important to have our partners' units here. This is really that we strongly support, and I think the more we have, the better. And the more we also have these trainings together, that's great. But I don't know if we need a separate kind of organization. Hard to say.
What about the others? Any thoughts here?
Sounds an interesting idea. I personally would say rather yes, but I'm not a military expert.
I'm not an expert either, but I'm sure there are some security risks that have to be taken into account, but when
No, the same is with the Estonians.
yeah, but when a system like this is being developed, then those things are all being thought through. So in that sense, I don't see a reason why it shouldn't be enough thing. Yeah.
All right.
But it needs to be thought through and assessed. I think that's, and also if there is a need to change the law, then this law has to be changed.
Yeah.
That's also a point.
And also, just to answer Lea's question, then I think that when a person would actually have this kind of question, which army are you joining, or where are you going, then if we already have a discussion like this, then probably there is also like a list of recommendations, or like a walk-through logical steps.
Because
that
you
should be
have
done.
obligations towards the country of your citizenship, and now you have two. If you have two countries, then you can't meet your obligations.
There are
Well, but I
probably
mean, in this practical scenario, because I felt like the question was addressed to me, in this practical scenario, the Portuguese government would not call me, and the Estonian government is more likely to call me. So probably, if it were up to me, I would join the Estonian military if you let me root for Portugal in football. So I would pick football versus Estonian football, and I would pick the Estonian army to serve.
That's a good choice.
There was
just
a question.
one comment. There are
Yeah.
many countries with dual citizenship
absolutely.
options, so there are many best practices to learn from.
Yeah,
Well,
we're not
we
reinventing the wheel.
haven't had this kind of situation that there is actually a war can break out like it's now. So maybe this is something that just hasn't been on the agenda, but it is a question because there is no answer to this question so far.
Where's the microphone? Yeah, please.
Hi, thank you. My name is Florian. I'm a German. I've been here for almost 8 years. I've got a B2 Estonian exam done as well. Just to quickly illustrate the previous point, I wanted to join Kaitseliit. However, foreigners can only join as so-called toetajaliiget. So I cannot hold a gun. I can only do the soup kitchen, which I would prefer to upgrade somehow. But that's just to illustrate that. One thing that is debated both, I think, in Estonian national media and also in expat sort of circles is the question of language in the service sector. If we talk about, we just had one of the participants join because of a transportation problem. We talk about Bolt drivers. Should there be some kind of language requirement for people that work in the service sector? Or is this something that the market just handles, and if Bolt says, we have people who don't speak Estonian, if you want to have people who speak Estonian use company XYZ, that's just something that the market handles. Thank you very much.
Can I answer?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, there is a huge problem, yes, that in the service sector you can't get service in Estonian. I've had this problem several times already. My children ordered some pizza, and the delivery guy didn't find the place. And at last, when he found, and he was speaking Russian, and my children didn't speak Russian that well. So of course, he found the place, but after he left, he said, "You have to study Russian." And that was quite an insult, and I think this kind of attitude is not acceptable. I think in the service sector, people have to speak Estonian, not expect that the Estonians would know other languages so they can serve them.
So that's a matter for regulation rather than letting the market decide.
Yes, it's a matter of regulation, and I think it has to be fixed.
Mm-hmm. Natalie?
I also have ordered with those services, and I haven't had an agreement with the other party like this, like your children had. So I don't think we can say that it's a huge problem, because we actually have huge problems in society, and the fact that your taxi driver or your Bolt or Wolt courier can't speak your language isn't a huge problem. You can be thankful and lucky that you have the resources to order pizza. We have people who can't do it, and that's a huge problem.
Well said. Daniel?
Yeah. Natalie said what I was actually planning to say. This sounds like a first world problem. That a huge problem is that pizza is lost. But most seriously talking, I think it's in some spheres, for example, in healthcare and other, it's quite hard to imagine that you will get the service that for people who don't know your mother language. No, it's not probably realistic. But in services and also in maybe private health sector, for example, it's possible that if you order a service or if you order an appointment, then you know what are the languages that your counterpart speaks. Is it Estonian? Is it English? Is it Russian? Is it all of those three? And then you can choose whether you take this service or you don't do it. And I think that in that way it would be more like market regulated, but people should at least be aware of that fact. If they, for example, call a taxi or visit the doctor, then what are the languages that they can communicate with?
Anyone else wants to jump in? Yeah, Andres?
Yeah, I think this is a point where the industry itself can also do an effort in order to avoid the regulatory backlash, which sometimes happens. I don't think each individual person working in services sector needs to have an excellent command of Estonian. I mean, if you don't interact with a client, there is basically no need. I think it's enormously helpful if in the interaction there is some basic understanding, but also I think technology can help out here. I mean, you can sort of, if you order something or you can sort of translate the language, it is provided people have smartphones. But that I think is something what most people already have, and I don't think having smartphone is a first world privilege. I think that's pretty widespread thing. So I think working a little bit also on the applications could help. But otherwise, I don't think we should really go with a massive regulation how to deliver X, Y, Z.
And in the end, Estonians don't like to talk anyway.
That's an advantage.
No, that's not true.
It was a joke. Sometimes it's also healthy to be funny.
The thing is that Estonians are very supportive towards other nations, and they usually, if they see that the other person doesn't know Estonian, they just switch to either English, Russian, and this is how this things goes. That if you're an Estonian, you can't get a service in Estonian language. You have to know other languages in your own home country.
Ella,
I don't think this happens in other countries like France with French people.
I guarantee you that it happens in many other countries in a lot of different services, including in healthcare, where you have Spanish doctors in Portugal giving services in Spanish. So it's not it's not unique.
Really bad. Then it's really bad.
Well, it increases the quality of the service industry. But anyway, Ella.
Yeah, I also wanted to say that Estonians are very willing to also speak in different languages if they can, but I think that the role of Estonian language and the health of it and preserving it is incredibly important, and not only in that sector but also in other sectors, in higher education, in public space, for example, the use of language. I think if we want to preserve our language, if we want to have it have high status in our society, then the more we use it in the more fields, the better.
I just wanted to say that the only problem with this delivery was not the language skills, it's the service skills and just a rude person. So I think that can be tackled in a very different way.
Yeah, just leave a negative review, right? That's what they're for. Any more questions? Yeah, there's one there, and there's one in the back. Go ahead.
Okay, name is David Wilkinson. I've lived here, before I ask my question, I'd like to say I've lived here on and off for just over 20 years. And I've lived some places and been some places, and I think Estonia is by far the best place to be a foreigner that I've ever been to. My neighbours, I live in the countryside, they know I'm not Estonian. I can never be Estonian. But they're still the best neighbours anyone could have. And I think it's often said that Estonians feel guilty about not being nice to foreigners, but Estonians are still a lot nicer to foreigners than they are to each other. Okay.
And the question?
I wanted to ask you, I thought I'd get a laugh because my question's going to be maybe a bit of a provocation. At the beginning we spoke about Ukraine, and I think one of the first things that was said was the need to get the rest of the world, and I think specific countries were mentioned, like India, to say that they have to agree to Russia getting out of Ukraine. My question is specifically about the unlikeliness of that, because the people who are wanting to take, as you described it, the Ukrainian side, which isn't how they would see it, maybe, is limited to the Americans' friends in NATO, the White Commonwealth, Japan, Korea, and Formosa. That's not no one. It's still about nearly half the world's population, half the world's wealth, but it's still roughly half the world seeing it as you would, half the world definitely not. Used expressions like the Ukrainian side. I think a lot of people don't see it, in the world, don't see it like that. They see the American side and the Russian side in a conflict that is happening in Ukraine. There is something odd that Soviet war memorials being removed, like in my village and all over Estonia, and yet the biggest memorial, Soviet memorial in Ukraine is its borders. And the rest of the world is thinking, what is so sacred to the Bidens about this Soviet construct? Now, I'm not seeking an answer to that. My question is specifically that when the tide doesn't go quite as you described, that the world doesn't change sides, but rather that the Americans might see the fundamental stupidity of a conflict with European Russia when their essential conflict may be with an Asiatic China, they will get bored. It might be quarter of a century, as it was in Afghanistan, but they will get bored and leave Afghanistan. And my question is precisely this. Should a more mature, grown-up Estonia not be considering a long-term policy that requires for its peace a healthy, dignified and even affluent Russia, rather than being in a position where your big tough friend has gone away and you're the one who has, rather crazily, borrowed money from the Americans to buy weapons from the Americans to fight an American proxy war. They run away. Specifically, do you see the policy of hanging on to the last American aeroplane out of Kabul as your role, or do you think that now there should be a more mature discussion of global foreign policy, specifically something sustainable with Russia?
So I see some eager comments here. Andres?
Yes, I also happen to be a chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee of Estonian Parliament, I think for the entire world, the choice is very, very clear. If you look at the voting in the on the last UN resolution, it was only 7 countries who voted against Russia's immediate withdrawal of its forces from Ukraine. And these countries, just to call: Belarus, Russia, Democratic Republic of Congo, Mali, Nicaragua.
North Korea.
This is a question of honoring UN
You
charter.
forgot Syria, I think.
And exactly, and the world, all the post-Second World War international order. Russia has breached every single principle, and there is no way how you can just seek for a negotiation or an agreement on something before they actually withdraw from the borders of Ukraine, as has been internationally recognized, before those who committed the crimes of war and aggression are held accountable, and before the reparations are paid. I don't see how the democratic world can see it differently.
Tanel?
You're mistaking my point. I'm not arguing for Vladimir Putin and what he's done.
But it's not the president.
Yeah.
It's the nation who is approving what the administration is doing.
Yeah.
That wasn't my point. My point was the likely consequences of these things.
Yeah, but
adherence to UN resolutions isn't one of them.
yeah, can I answer?
Of
Yeah, Tanel.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I think all those threats and the risks that you described are serious and real. But if you look from the Estonian perspective, then we don't really have any other choice. The only way forward is to support Ukraine until it wins this war. We cannot be naive to think that maybe if we are more peaceful minded here towards Russia, then it will conquer every other country except Estonia, because they have invaded Georgia, they have invaded Ukraine twice. The war has been actually ongoing already for 9 years, if you take the first 8 years also into consideration. And we know that Putin regime, and he will definitely not change. So the only way to actually have at least a chance or a possibility that there be a more democratic Russia is that dictator Putin and current Russian establishment has to lose this war. And this is the only way forward for us. And what I described before about China and India, I'm not being naive and thinking that China will send tomorrow their weapons to Ukraine. But the problem is that our mission in NATO is to make sure that all those countries that are right now mingling in the middle will see that we are 100% concentrated on this topic, on Ukraine winning this war, and there is no point in even thinking about supporting Russia, because in the end Russia's loss is only a question of time, and this is what we have to achieve. And then there is a lot bigger possibility that China and India and other countries will not also start to support Russia, but be neutral, and that's even good enough for right now.
Natalie?
Yeah, the only thing worth doing is making everything we can to stop Russia as soon as we can, and we of course have to help as much as we can, that they can't go anywhere else, including Estonia.
Eller, any different opinion here?
I mean, if we look at the past and if we look at the present, seeing that Russia and its motives would so drastically change, that it would be acceptable, I don't think that will happen. Russia has always been an existential crisis to us, and as of today, it seems to be continues to be so. So we have to definitely be aware of that.
All right. Any other questions from the audience? Yeah, there's one there.
Yes, hello everyone. I am Russian, so bringing up on the table probably the painful question that we were going around the whole evening. We've talked about Ukrainians and Europeans and US, but if I know anything about European values, is actually inclusion and not generalization. So it kind of hurts to hear when people say that Russians and Russian nation is supporting this and kind of excluding Russians from the democratics, from the friends of good people, and especially in Estonia, having such a big history. Being together with Russians, I think the important question is, can we here stop acting on the past traumas and existential crisis and start embracing this partnership with people who share your values? And there are many people who are coming to Estonia or would like to come to Estonia to work for your economy, to bring their brains here, to bring their, families, and make Estonia even better. But they get denied. So the question is, can we find it in us to put the past, leave the past in the past, and embrace this friendship with the people who share values, of course, not share Putin's values?
So I think it was also, good question. Yeah. I think it was also mentioned here in the slide, one of the most upvoted questions, the people leaving Russia obviously oppose what's happening in Ukraine and the regime. Visas for these Russians,
The first answer is, short answer would be yes, but the longer answer is that Estonian Centre Party has always worked on the topic that we cannot blame especially the local Russians and also those Russians who you said correctly are sharing our values and to put them in the same basket as those who are supporting Putin. So definitely we have to take those two differently. The nationality of being Russian or being born there doesn't mean that you're part of Putin's war. And I see this as a problem in Estonia, that we have this growing and black and white attitude that if you are a Russian, then you are a threat, and then you have to have. We have some parties who say that you should not be allowed to vote in the local elections, for example, and this is all actually, I think, very dangerous, because then we are pushing people away from the Estonian state and from our values, and actually pushing them towards maybe Putin's values, because they see that they are not treated equally here in Estonia. This is a problem. And if you talk about the people leaving Russia, then it's also the same question actually, that of course we all understand that Estonia cannot take in all the possible refugees from Russia or people living there, but Europe as a whole actually can do it. So in my personal opinion, we should be accepting people who are leaving Russia because they do not support Putin's regime and they want to live in Europe and share its values.
You're making your question is completely legitimate. The complexity of the issue is that nobody else from outside can govern Russia. It is for Russian people themselves to come to terms and change the way how this country is governed. And until this happens, it's really difficult to kind of offer the same freedoms that did exist before a full-scale aggression. I mean, having a tourist visa is not an obligation, or issuing a tourist visa is not an obligation from any of the European countries. It's a privilege what any receiving country offers. And we can't really, in my opinion at least, say that it is only one man who is waging this war in Ukraine, and this man is Putin. I mean, it is for Russian people to come to terms and change the way how the leadership of this country is behaving. And we can't do it from outside. That's the internal process. If somebody is oppressed or repressed in Russia, I mean, you can always seek for asylum. That is nobody is denying. But I think we need to understand here that this line what has been taken is not against nationality, but it is because the country is behaving in a way as it does, and the people of this country are allowing the government to behave in that way.
Lea?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to remind you that I think it was 97% of Russian citizens living in Estonia voted for Putin in the last election. So this is something that we have to remember.
Not true. Most of them did not vote. The 90% of the people didn't vote, so 10% voted, and out of that, 97. So that's just you're changing the facts, you know.
So, but of course, the Russian opposition, we have to support it, just like Estonia has supported also the opposition in Belarus. So this is important, but we of course can't take all of the opposition people from opposition to Estonia to live here. Of course, they have a very important role in Russia to actually, maybe Russia will change at some point. At the moment, we can't see this, but of course, I very much agree with Andres. He made the point that at the situation that we're in, we have to consider all the risks as well.
Natalie?
Well, of course, this is super complex because, like Tanel was referring earlier to Ukrainians, then we still are talking about other human beings. And we had, and I think a lot of countries had this big discussion which Russian artists and sports people can be let in and which can't, and can the Russian athletes be part of international games. Perhaps what has been surprising for me is that even if there are Russians in the opposition and they've left the country, then we actually don't hear them, or we don't hear them enough, and we don't see them as we see perhaps the other part, and that's a question mark for me. Of course, I understand the fear behind it.
Anders, very briefly, and then Margo.
Yeah. I think this point about the opposition in Russia and giving them an amplified voice is very, very important. We met with the wife of imprisoned Vladimir Karamurza about 2 weeks ago, and that was precisely what we discussed, how we can help the opposition in exile and pro-democracy movements in exile to make their voice heard, so that the people in Russia could make these changes to happen.
But don't you think that a lot of these Russians that she was talking about are also the Russians that oppose the regime? There are...
I think we mixed here, maybe I misunderstood, but I think we mixed here up two issues. One was with the Russian-speaking population living in Estonia. I think that is completely not related.
That's not related. I'm talking about the ones that are leaving Russia.
Those who want to escape, I mean, there has to be... if they ask asylum, that right does exist, but then you need to show that you are really threatened. Mm-hmm. But there are many politicians who are outside. Yeah.
If you're saying that Russians need to be the ones who take down their dictator and it's the only ones who can, then you have never been to Russia or never been to Russia in the past few months, trying to go in the street even with the blank sheet of paper gets people to prison. So I think we have to see it in a way that Russians are also someone who are kind of occupied by their government, so we cannot generalize them as...
Similar to Belarus.
Yes, exactly. But, and the second thing that I wanted to say, kind of to add to my question, that maybe we can see Russians wanting to come to Estonia to work, not as a threat or liability, but actually as an asset, because Russia is the country that was always able to generate quite good-minded people and quite smart people, and Estonia is a very obvious place for them to go to, and Estonia could definitely greatly benefit in any ways from that.
Margo, you haven't said anything, so maybe...
Yeah, I think nobody denies the potential of Russian people, and that's not the question. I think when we talk about this issue, it's like talking about the real Estonian and some half Estonian. It's like the good and bad Russians. I mean, you can't make such differentiation. I guess we all need to look at it as the solidarity of taking the responsibility by the Russians. It's as a human being, it's probably very difficult and sad, but that's the situation. And I was attending Slush, and there was a great Russian startup that won the pitching competition, offering amazing service. And unfortunately, they had to give away their award because of that reason. So it is the situation. I understand it's very difficult, but it's the solidarity of Russian nation that just is there.
Guys, we're running out of time. We actually have gone over the time. I don't want to end on such a heavy topic. So is there any lighter question in the audience? Not to make little of the questions. Quick question.
Okay,
and let's try to keep the answers very, very brief.
Actually, it's a very, to to one concrete person. I have the feeling, because it's the first time I hear Tanel Kiik talking, like, I can see he's well prepared, and he was minister and so on. So young minister of healthcare during pandemia, and he is prepared, I have the feeling. So I hope he can manage to share in his party that if he gets into the government, he forms coalition with Social Democrats or with other parties, but not with conservatives or not with populists. So please use your wisdom and your tools, please, not to make a coalition with certain parties, like you did before.
That's a good question. Like, who gets?
Can you promise that you will work on that?
No pressure.
I think that's a good question. Who gets in bed with who?
Lighter way to end this. Yeah, no, the right answer is that the Center Party has not, that we are ready to make coalition with different types of parties. We have been in a coalition in the last 6 years with all of the parliament parties right now. And definitely we don't have anything against Estonia 200 either. So we'll see it after the parliament elections. If you ask me personally, then my EKRE is definitely not my first choice, not my second choice either. No.
But it's a choice.
No, it's in the end of the line now, if you don't have any other options. But yeah, but we are not saying that. Yeah, this is my personal opinion. Yeah, but I hope that after the parliament elections we'll have a decent government, and hopefully Centre Party will be a part of it, because I think it's good for the society. Yeah.
This sounds like typical Centre Party.
And
that's why they're called Centre Party, right?
Yeah. But can I correct myself before I say, because Lea said that 94% of Russians here voted for Putin. This was correct, but I said that only 10% went out to vote, but actually it was 1/3 who went out to vote, so it has to be correct.
So 33%.
But it was in 2018. So 2/3 of the Russian citizens did not go to vote for Putin or for anybody, even then. So we cannot take those numbers from there, from 1/3 of the local Russian citizens as a number or statistic that we can cover all the local Russians.
But to build on the question that was asked to Tanel specifically, but maybe to the others, Andres, your party is leading the polls.
Are you ready to make coalition with us?
So looking at
or with
forming
EKRE.
an alliance, have you made your choices?
My position is very simple, or our party's position is very simple and straightforward. It is unchanged from the last elections in 2019. So we are open to form a coalition with all the parties who are elected to a parliament except EKRE.
All right, that's pretty clear. Not even the last choice. What about the others? Have you started thinking about coalition options for the Social Democrats, ST200, Isama?
Well, you bet we have.
You kind of have to.
Well, actually, this would be a great opportunity for Estonia to have a liberal government, and I think that a lot of people are waiting for it, and we definitely hope that this is going to take place.
Margot?
Well, I really love inclusiveness in general, but here I need to exclude indeed one party, which is EKRE, but for the rest I think we are pretty open.
And yes, no question, we are excluding EKRE 100%.
I kind of feel like, this buddy program that we were talking about, pairing people with others. Maybe Isama, maybe you have a difference of opinion about forming a coalition with EKRE.
Well, I have an opinion that we definitely hope that it will be not 100% liberal coalition, because if it's so, EKRE will even gain more support, because people who have conservative values don't see them represented in the government, and they will get more frustrated. That's why I think this kind of, like you said, mitmekesisus, diversity, it would be very good for the government, so that also the conservative people see that government
I like how
stands
diversity becomes useful.
That's
sometimes.
very nice. Yeah, Isama is talking about diversity.
Well, actually,
diversity is maybe not so useful.
No,
other times,
diversity is very useful if you.
When it's a good diversity.
No. I would say that Estonia, if there are Estonians, if there are an Estonian nation state, it contributes to the contributes to the diversity of our world, because we have all other nations have their own home, like the
Not all.
most bigger ones have, yes,
most
of course,
of them don't
but there are
have,
of
yeah,
course some
okay.
nations that don't have, and they are also threatened to become like extinct. So it is important that we still have all those nations, even the small ones like Estonians, and to preserve them. It's important to see that immigration will not kind of overrun this nation state.
Very, very briefly.
Yes, great, but you were saying that we need a conservative party in the government so these people wouldn't feel excluded, but these liberal parties care about all of the people in Estonia, but the conservative parties don't.
So liberals.
And they've said it also out loud, and that's the way they behave. And
if you exclude the conservatives, how can you support everybody? This is not logical.
No, but I think her point is that the liberal parties care about conservatives as well.
Yes,
No, I don't
and
see
the
that.
politics, the liberal parties too, are for everybody, and they don't exclude nobody in their politics.
But maybe for Elar,
No.
you're feeling a bit excluded here. So in terms of the coalition options,
What
because
yeah,
I
what-
think your
I just
party
wanted
is
to
second
say one thing that
in the polls.
we can talk whatever we please tonight, but I think we'll see on the 5th who's texting who. So.
Okay, all right.
Who are
Make
you
sure-
texting?
Make sure you have everyone's number before you leave. I think Silver had a remark.
Yeah, sorry. Silver Tambur, Estonian World's editor, and I just couldn't resist. I have to make this remark. And coming back to the Russian question, and no offense to everyone, but if you look at the history, Andres, you were talking about tourist visas. She was not talking about tourist visas. Imagine, let's take Cuba, for example. Imagine Americans telling to Cubans, oh, we can't let you in. Cubans who fled Castro's regime and came to America. People who were against that regime, actually, and working their way up in America. Imagine them, oh, we can't take you. You stay in Cuba, change the regime. If you look at the dictatorship, back in all around the world, we know how they work. They cannot change it there. So the question, I think, was there about Russian professionals who are against Putin's regime and who want to come here, and that was the point here. So,
But
just-
Cuba didn't attack US or Canada.
Well, I'm talking about systems, dictatorships, as Cuba, for example, under Fidel Castro, right? You cannot change. That's the wider point here. You cannot change the dictatorship.
You can't
So
say to North Koreans that you have to choose your democratic
well, exactly,
leaders.
North Korea. These people cannot change that system. So she is the person here against Putin's regime, came to here, wants to work for Estonia, supports her values. Why would we say we're against her just because Russia is ruled?
I'll give Andres
That's
the
ridiculous.
chance to
Sorry.
reply. I mean, we're back into heavy topics now again, but I guess this is what it is.
I think an easy way out for me or for anybody in the government would be to say, okay, we will do exactly what you suggested, and there were debates, but the problem we are facing as a global community is that we have a country who has been waging a war, first time since the Second World War, moving the borders unilaterally, using force. And then...
Not the first time.
No, but... What do you mean?
No, it's in 2008 with Georgia and
but
later on
in a scale, what do we see today?
2014 with
2014,
same country.
Yeah, exactly. So all the empires have fallen apart because of the people inside make it to happen, including the Soviet Union. So it's impossible from outside.
No, it is
to,
not true actually.
To,
Soviet Union collapsed because of the actually outside terror.
Yeah, yes,
Isolation,
but,
and this is...
but isolation is precisely what is happening. I mean, that's why our sanctions are important. I mean, as I said, all asylum seekers are free to come. But what is, in your opinion, would the athletes from Russia and Belarus be okay to go to Olympics?
No, I don't want to touch the sports.
But these are all related
different.
topics.
Yeah, that's
no,
different.
they are not.
I'm talking about specifically people who I personally happen to know who come to Estonia are clearly against, including some who were a part of opposition in Russia. And even some of those people have been now sent away back from Estonia.
So let's talk about
the
asylum.
So you're sending them back to the lion's den, basically. That's what it is about, you know. And talking about empires, it's not just about within, it's also the outside forces, including people who have left those countries.
Absolutely.
Including during the Soviet occupation, Estonians left Estonia and went to fight against the empire in other countries. And that's exactly, I think, what she also meant. They can do more here of bringing down Putin's regime than in Russia, because they can't do anything there. This is the reality.
People who are out from Russia are out from Russia, and they certainly can contribute a lot, and they do contribute a lot. The same goes with the sanctions and all other isolation, diplomatic included, vis-à-vis Russia. I know, and I can, from each individual's point of view, it's difficult, but it's equally difficult to design an easy fix to whom you give it and to whom you don't. And how do you engineer then the change? I think, and it's perfectly fine if we have here a different opinion.
Mm-hmm. I think this is where we establish that there are different opinions, and I think that's it. We ended with a heavy topic, but I think we've gone over time already, 15 minutes. I don't want to abuse the generosity of the candidates for coming here. I just want to point out that I think of at least on the English-speaking debates, talking about diversity, this has been the one with the biggest gender diversity. I think we had 4 female panelists, so that was very good, and I want to highlight that. I don't know how the Estonian debates were. I didn't watch many of them, but at least on the English-speaking ones, I'm proud that we managed to do that. And thank you all the panelists for joining us and contributing your time to enlightening the audience about the future of Estonia and your different point of views. It's very welcome from us that we don't even get to vote and we get to hear your opinions. For the expats that were here, many of you getting their citizenship soon, so they will vote on the next elections. Many of you will vote.
Counting on you.
Many of you will vote on the European elections and the local elections. So it's always good to see what the parties have to say. And I'm very proud of us as a community that we are willing to question, hear, and be part of civil society, and all together make Estonia a more inclusive and better society.
Great again.
Great again. I'm going to say that. Yeah, thank you. That's it. Thank you so much, and welcome at the next one. And can I get the team? Can I get the team up here? The team from Astonishing Evenings for just a group photo with the team that put it all together out of their own free time. And maybe we can, if we get the team here, can we give a big round of applause to the team that put all of this together? Can I get Nele, Relika, Silver? We're missing one candidate.